Shalom, family. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Well, I tell you what, there are some big celebrations going on over in Iran. I've been looking at the people in the streets, and they are definitely declaring a victory for real. So, that being said, we're going to take a look at what happened in detail. Now, I do have actually my usual videos, and I also have one from the Daily Beast. So let me see here. Okay, so before we get started, I just wanted to remind you we have a Botana oil sale going on this week. So it's called Everything Botana 30. That is the promo code you're going to use for Etsy and Shopify. And TikTok Shop, you really won't have to worry about that. You'll get the discount. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk. Donald Trump agreed to a ceasefire. Now, the reason why this is being viewed as a victory is because through Pakistan, Donald Trump presented a 15-point agreement to a ceasefire that Iran straight up rejected. They did not accept Donald Trump's terms. Iran came up with their own terms, which were 10 points, 10 things they wanted done. Donald Trump agreed to all 10 of the items Iran was requesting to do a ceasefire. So think about that. Iran rejected Donald Trump, but Donald Trump accepted theirs. So that's why many people are saying this is a victory for Iran. And I agree, it is a victory for them. You know, Donald Trump's got to meet all 10 of their demands. He agreed to do it. So, quite naturally, there are a lot of people that are angry with Donald Trump for agreeing to everything. But, you know, what can they really do other than be mad? Nothing. And there are a lot of people that see this as a defeat, which it is, you know. So I'm going to let you listen. We're going to start with the Daily Beast. And let me share my screen. Okay. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you. Thank you. Oh yeah, it's going to be a lot of butt sore people because they don't like my my avatar, and I don't care. Donald Trump has been defeated. The US is defeated. And he has to accept that in order to get the ceasefire. That's a defeat. All right, thank you for the ones, everybody.
With tonight's ceasefire with Iran barely 3 hours old, there have been at least 2 statements we've now seen from Tehran on it. President Trump tonight is disputing one of them. CNN's Matthew Chance has new reporting that sheds light on the one the president is complaining about. He joins us now from Doha, Qatar. Matthew?
That's right, Anderson. There are a couple of statements. There's a very short one from the Iranian foreign minister, basically saying, you know, look, we're going to observe a ceasefire and open the Strait of Hormuz on the basis that there will be negotiations with the United States, and our 10-point plan, that Iranian 10-point plan, will be accepted as the basis for those negotiations. But it doesn't go any further than that. The second document document, the one apparently President Trump seems to be objecting to, is the one that's been sent to us by the Supreme National Security Council of Iran. That's Iran's highest military body. And that's a lot more aggressive, and it goes into a lot more detail about what that 10-point plan to end the war from Iran actually involves. And it includes things like this: regulating passage through the Strait of Hormuz in coordination with Iran. So basically making sure that Iran still can exercise control over that strategic waterway through which 20% of the world's oil passes, to end the war against the axis of resistance. So that's a reference to Iran's proxies, and perhaps Israel stopping its attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon, but also other proxies in the region as well. The third point it mentions is the withdrawal of US combat forces from bases across the Middle East region. That's obviously a big ask, unlikely to be accepted, but nevertheless, it is one of the points in that 10-point Iranian plan, according to this Supreme National Security Council document that was sent to us, by the way, by the Iranian Foreign Ministry. The fourth point that I identified here, a compensation payment that Iran is demanding. That's war reparations for the damage that have been incurred throughout this 5 or 6 week US and Israeli military campaign, which has caused massive destruction, I expect. And finally, the lifting of sanctions, all sanctions, and the unfreezing of assets. That would obviously be a major boon for the Iranians. The document also goes on to talk about how negotiations to sort of find a final agreement, a final end to the conflict, a cessation of hostilities, will be carried out in Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan, over the next 15 days, and they'll start on Friday. So again, a much more detailed document from that supreme military body in Iran compared to what we saw from the foreign minister that just sort of spelt out the raw, the bare bones of a ceasefire agreement.
So Matthew, I just want to be clear. You got that more detailed statement that was actually sent to you by the foreign ministry of Iran?
Yeah, it had already appeared on state news agencies in Iran, like the Fars news agency and the semi-official Tasmin news agency as well. But when President Trump posted on Truth Social that he objected to that report, to that document, he said it was fake. I followed up with the Iranian Foreign Ministry and said, look, do you have this document that you can send to me? And they sent me the document themselves, which was exactly the same as the document we originally had. And so, look, I think we're pretty confident, very confident, that this document is authentic.
So the foreign ministry, would they be involved in the negotiations or any negotiations that take place between the U.S., Pakistan, and Iran?
I expect so. I mean, the Foreign Minister Arangchi has been one of the more outwardly facing officials in what's left of the Islamic regime. Remember, a lot of his associates have been killed, assassinated in US and Israeli strikes over the past several weeks. I don't know for sure what the makeup is going to be of the Iranian negotiating team, but there's every possibility that the Iranian foreign minister is going to be part of that.
Matthew Chance, I appreciate your reporting from Doha.
All right, y'all. Yep, Donald Trump caved. He caved, y'all. He caved. And you can't take that back. You just can't. So, yes, there is reaction, even one from Iran, because they know who Donald Trump is and they know what he's all about. And they came right out and said, oh, no, Donald Trump, don't try to spin this as a victory. See, I mean, everybody knows Donald Trump. So he'll go behind the scenes and admit defeat, but he'll get in front of the cameras and claim the U.S. won this war. You know how Donald Trump is. Everybody knows what a big liar he is. All right. All right, y'all. So let's get into it. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Yeah, I know about Israel still bombed in Iran after the ceasefire was called. I do know about that. And I also know Israel also bombed Lebanon yesterday as well after the ceasefire was called. So it's almost like just because Donald Trump made this deal, it doesn't seem that they are interested in going along with it. And yes, that's going to become a problem because Iran is not going to continue to get bombed, and you're supposed to have a ceasefire. And this actually proves Iran right. They said this. They have tried to negotiate with Donald Trump in the past, and every time during the negotiation, they would continue to bomb Iran. And as you can see, that is exactly what happened again. So there you go. They sure didn't lie about it. All right, y'all. Thank you for the ones.
Trump, don't try to dress up defeat as victory at this point. You are only deceiving yourself. The reality is that the decisions you made have failed, and now you are trying to present it as a win, but the whole world is watching. This is not a success. It is a clear failure, and the more you try to hide it, the more the truth will come out.
There is no way. The man who wrote The Art of the Deal is basically saying that we're going to start with Iran's 10-point proposal as the framework. We're going to read that in just one moment, but that is a huge concession to the country of Iran. He says, well, everybody, we just received the Truth Social post moments ago, and Donald Trump has officially tacoed. In this case, I am very glad he backed down from destroying the entire civilization of Iran, which was his threat. For weeks, he has been threatening direct war crimes against the citizens of Iran by striking their desalination plants, striking power plants in the region, and taking out their oil refineries by claiming this was all military infrastructure, but in fact using such an over-inclusive, over-expansive definition of military infrastructure that he could justify killing, even schoolgirls who are at school, just like they did during the opening salvo of this war. I have only read most of this, but I haven't finished it yet because I decided to just turn on the camera and live react to this with you all. I really do not like the president of the United States using the threat of nukes or using the threat of entire civilizations being destroyed in a genocidal mania as an excuse to negotiate or reach some sort of ceasefire. Now, of course, I'm happy he backed down, but this entire situation only furthers the argument for the 25th Amendment and for immediate impeachment. This entire situation only furthers the argument for constitutional guardrails on who can start a war. So make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the Adam Mockler feed if you've appreciated the relentless truth-telling on this channel and help us get to 2 million subscribers. So Trump said just moments ago, as human chains were forming around the country of Iran, around power plants in particular.
Thousands of Iranians are forming human chains around power plants and across bridges after President Trump threatened to target critical infrastructure if the regime does not agree by 8 p.m. Eastern tonight to a deal that includes reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The demonstration.
All right, now let's see exactly what Donald Trump said in his announcement post just moments ago. He said, quote, based on conversations with Prime Minister Sharif and Field Marshal Manur of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran, and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. Okay, interesting. So it seems like he's still saying that this is all subject to the IRGC opening the Strait of Hormuz, which they may not have fully agreed to do. He could be putting the cart before the horse and backing down before Iran has even opened the Strait of Hormuz. He also says they need to completely reopen the strait, which is back to the status quo of the original war. Like literally 45 days ago, the strait was already open. So all we've gotten for this war is more dead soldiers, and the reopened strait. Either way, let's continue. He says, this will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. Okay, they claimed that during his first term. And literally 7 hours ago, he said he was going to genocide all of Iran. That doesn't sound like we're getting towards peace in the region. Also, let's just very quickly before we finish that, go through the goals of this war that Trump and Pete Hegseth and everybody have stated. They said no more nukes, no more funding terrorist proxies, no more missiles, no more Navy. Well, we destroyed their old conventional Navy, but they still have a Navy that can close the Strait of Hormuz. They still have missiles that are hitting Israel and that are pointed at the Strait of Hormuz. Their nuclear material, like the enriched uranium, still exists. They still have the knowledge, and they still have.
Donald Trump is panicking as he has suffered a massive and catastrophic defeat in his unlawful war against Iran. The people of Iran have taken to the streets, rejoicing in their complete and total victory over Donald Trump and his regime. You see the people out on the street here in Iran. Here are people out in Iraq and Baghdad. Across the Middle East, the Shiite community and others are out partying and having parades over the defeat of the United States. And let's be very clear, this was a total and utter capitulation and surrender by Donald Trump and his regime. The Trump regime said that they were adopting the 10-point negotiating framework from Iran. And when you read that framework, which we've been talking about for weeks now, Iran's 10-point negotiating framework. Remember, the Trump regime had a 15-point negotiating framework where they wanted Iran to surrender. Iran had a 10-point negotiating framework, which the Trump regime was saying that's nonsense. We won't even look at it. These are, quote, maximalist demands that will never allow us to get to a ceasefire or an end to this war. Well, the Trump regime didn't just take one or two or three of those points from Iran's 10-point negotiating plan. Trump accepted all 10. You want to know what those 10 are? There's a statement here. I mean, I've read them before, but this is what Iran's Supreme National Security Council put out. Here's the 10 points that Trump agreed to. Commitment to non-aggression, continuation of Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. And by the way, Iran says only 10 to 15 ships will get to go through the Strait of Hormuz and have to pay a $2 million fee to Iran. Acceptance of uranium enrichment from Iran, lifting of all the primary sanctions and all secondary sanctions against Iran, termination of all UN Security Council resolutions against Iran, termination of all Board of Governor resolutions against Iran, payment of compensation to Iran for all the damage caused during the war, withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from the region, cessation of war on all fronts, including against Hezbollah and Lebanon. You can't get much more of a surrender than that. Iran got everything it wanted and more. And when those points were pointed out to Donald Trump and his regime, Donald Trump lost it. So the CNN posted a graphic of what the 10-point Iranian negotiating framework is. There's a reason why the Iranians are celebrating, because they got everything they wanted and more in this. But CNN published the 10-point framework. And Donald Trump was like, the alleged statement put out by CNN World News is a fraud, as CNN well knows. The false statement was linked to a fake news site from Nigeria, and of course, immediately picked up by CNN and blared out as a legitimate headline. The official statement by Iran was just released and posted on Truth. Below, authorities are looking to determine whether or not a crime was committed on the issuance of the
a meat grinder with no clear picture of what winning looks like or how it ends. A commissioned officer, not a junior soldier, a senior officer with command responsibility, is quoted describing a potential ground invasion of Iran as, in their exact words, an absolute disaster. When an officer at that level allows that assessment to reach civilian journalists under wartime conditions, that is not a leak. That is a warning. And then there is the image, a meme now spreading across American military social media pages, the kind of pages run by and for active duty personnel, not by political activists. It shows a soldier in American military gear, tears on their face, holding a photograph. The photograph is the thing the soldier is supposedly fighting for, the reason the sacrifice is worth it. And the photograph shows Donald Trump, Melania Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell. No caption needed, no political commentary required. The soldiers sharing that image are making a statement that no speech, no press briefing, and no patriotic framing can neutralize. They are saying, we see exactly what this is, and it is not what we signed up for. Now look at what this war actually has and does not have, because this is where the strategic failure becomes impossible to deny. Every military campaign requires one thing above everything else, a defined end state. a specific, achievable condition that once reached means the war is over and the soldiers can come home. This conflict does not have one. Trump issued a 48-hour ultimatum to Iran demanding full access to the Strait of Hormuz. Iran refused. The 48 hours passed. The strait remains closed. The threatened destruction of Iranian energy infrastructure did not happen on the timeline promised. What that sequence of events revealed to every military professional watching and to
Okay. So what I also want to say about the Straits of Hormuz, Iran will remain 100% in control with the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it gets even deeper. When they open it back up, people have to pay $2 million to enter the Straits of Hormuz, and they got to pay another $2 million to exit the Straits of Hormuz. So they got to muster up $4 million to give to the Iranians to enter and exit the Straits of Hormuz. And up until now, they've been paying in Chinese yuan. So Donald Trump can't dictate to them what they can and cannot do, because with the ceasefire, he agreed to let them stay. He can't even let them do it. He agreed Iran will control it. That's what he agreed to. He can't let them do anything because it really is not anything that belongs to the U.S. It belongs to them. So he can't do anything but comply, and that's what he's doing. All right, let's go on.
every adversary watching is that the gap between what this administration threatens publicly and what it can actually deliver militarily is very, very large. That gap does not close with better messaging. It closes with either military escalation that the troops themselves are warning against, or a political exit that no one in Washington has yet been willing to describe out loud. Subscribe to this channel now if you are not already. This is the kind of analysis the mainstream channels will not run because it does not fit the official story. We run it anyway. The contrast between the two.
Okay, y'all. You know what this is, y'all? Donald Trump got defeated on the world stage. And let me tell you something. Nobody's ever going to be afraid of the US again. They saw one country manhandle two countries. And the US was boasting to be a superpower, which you can forget about that superpower talk. You can forget it. And you can forget about these high IQs. You MAGAs need to take MAGA off of your hat and put taco up there. Y'all need to walk around with taco hats. So anyway, y'all, the US is never going to be able to take a dominant position in the world again. They can't. They got their asses handed to them when they really believe they were going to get in this fight and Iran was going to beg to concede in about a day or two. I think that's how it was sold to Donald Trump. That's why he was so eager to get involved in this strike that Israel came up with, and he joined them, because I really think the talks behind the scenes, they were telling Donald Trump this was going to be quick. And as the weeks went by, he realized it didn't look like it was going to be quick. But by then, he was in over his head. And he's still in over his head, because this is a temporary ceasefire, y'all. This ain't permanent. This is temporary. All right. And that means after the 2 weeks is over, they can resume fighting. They can easily resume fighting. And you saw in there also, Donald Trump has agreed to pay reparations to Iran. They want compensation for the US tearing up their country with all those missiles. And that was in that 10-point agreement for a ceasefire, and he agreed to all 10. So, and Donald Trump is definitely defeated. Mhm. Now, this is funny because when I woke up this morning, I was looking at a series of different articles, and one of them was Donald Trump plans on putting 50% tariffs on any country that supplies Iran with weapons. That's the threat he got out there. And I don't think anybody is paying attention to Donald Trump's threat at this point. Oh, y'all love that Taco Tuesday. There are so many memes out there today on that. And I know Donald Trump saw it. So anyway, y'all, I don't think even if countries, because I know China and Russia have already gave Iran weapons, and they said Chinese trains were going into Iran the whole time this war was going on, and China has been supplying them with whatever they could. So are you gonna throw 50% tariff? Because China, the last time Donald Trump threw tariffs on China, China threw tariffs back on the US. So they got the ability to do the same thing to you. So y'all, nope, this is definitely not a victory for the US. I'm not going to be surprised if Donald Trump in the next few days come out and try to claim to be victorious in the whole thing, and he's not. He's not at all. And nobody on this earth is going to see this as a victory for the US. Nobody's going to see it that way. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, he gonna still try to get in front of the cameras talking tough and everything. Ain't nobody paying attention to that shit. Mhm. No, he'll just do what he always do. He'll get into some big ass rant on Truth Social, that probably is about as big and bad as he'll get. But getting in front of the cameras, trying to talk like he did over the last few days, "Oh, civilization's going in." And I knew he was full of crap. And he also agreed to vacate every single military base there. Well, you might as well vacate because they're all destroyed because they don't want any US presence in that region. They want all of the US military and their bases gone. And that's also part of that 10-point agreement. So look like the troops will be coming out of there. Yeah, he's a big failure. He was a big failure in his first administration, Black Panther strike. He was a failure then. Mhm. Yeah, now the Democrats want to invoke the 25th Amendment. The Democrats need to go somewhere and sit down. See, you should have invoked that before he dropped the first bomb or immediately right after he did, and he never came to Congress for authorization. You should have invoked it then. You waited too long. 5 weeks later, all the bombing that took place on a regular basis, it was continuous. They didn't break for one day. So now you're ready to do it? Damn, talk about a day late and a buck short. We don't have nothing but elected cowards. All of them. They're all cowards in the Senate and Congress. Everybody that's elected in office and sitting on Capitol Hill, you're all a bunch of cowards. I don't even see the point in you even being there. Mhm. Yeah, and think about that. One of many ancestral shadows. Kamala, well, not Kamala so much, really Biden, he was the president. She really couldn't send funds to anybody, but Biden could. And Biden sent all that money to Ukraine knowing the US was really, when you think about it, the US was insolvent even then. This is not something that happened overnight. It took decades to get to this point. So many of these presidents, including Reagan, Clinton, all of them have been spending money technically this country never had. So if it's insolvent now, it was even insolvent back when Biden was in office. And he sent massive amounts of money to Ukraine, knowing the US didn't really have the money to do so. They did it anyway. So y'all, this place is full of crap. The only thing Donald Trump has proven, he can't run a country, and he's even worse at heading a war. He's even worse. Him and Pete Hegseth are not qualified. They're not war strategists. And the people that could have been of help, they fired them all. They fired them all. And you see what they both sound like every day on TV. They sound like two babbling idiots. So the US, you lost this one, and you lost bad. It's not like it was neck and neck. Technically, y'all, it was never neck and neck. You can tell the Most High got behind Iran, because when I say they brought it because I was watching it on live, y'all. They were just pounding the hell out of Israel. And you saw the strikes on the military bases. And another reason why the US was defeated, do you know Donald Trump had all of the satellite feeds cut? You know why he did that? I know why he did it. He didn't want anybody to see how bad those 10 US bases were damaged by Iran. So the feeds were cut so nobody could see the aftermath of those strikes on the military, but he didn't want it seen. He didn't want it seen. Another reason why he did not want it seen, because you would know with a certainty it's more than some 13 people that lost their lives on all 10 of those bases destroyed. There's no way it's just 13 people. You would know instantly just looking at those bases. Remember, you had a lot of people on those bases when it was struck. So there's no way you would know instantly. There's no way it was only 13 people like they're trying to tell us. So yes, so he cut all satellite feeds so nobody could see all 10 of those bases and how bad the damage was from those missiles striking each and every one of them. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, he don't want anybody to be able to do it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not surprised he did that. Because we sure haven't seen any up close photos of those bases. But I'm sure probably in the coming years, when this long is over, it might drop then. But I know that it has to be bad in order for him to make that move. It has to be really devastating. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. There is a couple of other stories I'm looking at, so I might come back and post something a little later. All right. So, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your support, and have a wonderful afternoon, family. Shalom.